Welcome back to the Puckn Pod. On today's episode, we discuss the NHL regular season opening, the NBA preseason, Major League Baseball playoff news. We also introduce a new segment on today's show. And finally, we discuss our favorite hype songs. That's all coming up next right here on the Puckn Pod. Let's puck and go. All right, folks, you are back. We are back for another episode of the Puckn Pod. My name is Joe.
My name is Brandon.
And I'm Paul.
It's going to be another fun one, gentlemen. How you guys feeling today?
It's back. We're back.
Hockey's here. Loving it. Loving it.
Like, I feel like we should be excited for hockey right now, but as a Canuck fan, I'm not exactly the most excited after the performance of game number 1. How do you guys feel after watching your team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, in their first game?
I don't feel that badly. I mean, you always want your team who's projected to be higher in the standings than the team you're facing to have a bit of a solid chance to take the dub, but at the same time, I'm not super unimpressed with their play. They got to clean some stuff up, but for the most part, the defense looked pretty good. Goalies looked pretty good. I mean, and the only goal that they really let in was a beautiful play by Montreal. So,
yeah, you really can't complain about 47 save performance by Montembeault, right? Like, the Leafs had shots in them. They hit a few posts and crossbars in that game. There was every opportunity for them to win. The puck luck didn't work out for them, and Montembeault stood on his head. And give credit to the Habs defense; they actually did shut down in front of the net pretty good. Yeah,
it's funny because you like you say, you want your team to be the best team possible on the ice every night, and we have high hopes for our teams, both of us, and it's just funny because I look at the performance of the Canucks last night. We're recording this the day after the first game they played. And I look at that performance and I feel like, okay, so they started off the better team. They definitely dominated the first period. And when I say dominated, they were well outplaying the Flames. But then something seemed to happen where they came back in that second period and it just sort of stopped playing defense. Which is ironic because that's one of their stronger traits. That was one of their stronger traits last year. Yeah. And yeah, it's to use a word we're going to be using later, it's appalling because it's, as a fan, you're just kind of like this, like you had an entire training camp to focus on this stuff. And then you hear Rick Tocchet after the game talk about how it's not something they focused on a lot of during training camp. So hopefully, when they come back to play again tomorrow, and by the time this podcast is out, we'll know the answer. But hopefully, they can come out with a much better performance in game number 2.
Yeah, I think the Canucks got into their own heads. I think, unfortunately, in that game, when you have 4 unanswered goals, whether it was the fight to JT Miller after the Miller hit on Rooney, which again it was a clean hit, whether it deserved a fight afterwards is kind of up in the air on that, but that in my opinion the fight seemed to rally the Flames into going into overdrive and fighting the rest of that game for Rooney at that point.
I firmly believe it's a combination of both rallying the Flames and kind of deflating the Canucks too. Not deflating, but I think the Rooney injury is what kind of deflated them in that, like, they felt bad for the guy. I could tell that, Miller wasn't trying to hurt him. He wasn't trying to, take the guy out of the game. Whether, he was trying to hit him, there's no doubt in my mind. But, yeah. And obviously, like, it's what I see it as is a kind of what, and, I look at it like last year in the playoffs, Pettersson got a penalty for what we call a back check, where he sees the guy coming, so he's getting ready to both brace himself and hit the guy to take him off the puck at the same time and give himself some space. I see that is what Miller was trying to do. He was trying to clear more space for him to take the puck. Now he had the puck. The puck came off of his stick. Rooney was there. He hits Rooney, and then Rooney loses. And this is, again, my perspective. This is my opinion. Rooney loses his balance and then goes headfirst into the boards, and that's what I saw.
So saying this from that's from obviously a Canucks perspective, looking at it from a Flames perspective, and having spoken with somebody in Calgary, Michael R. in Calgary, who kind of suggested to me that, well, it very much is the case that Miller was going after the puck. It's not entirely that he was trying to avoid making that heavy of a hit either. Like, he was going a pretty decent speed at Rooney at the time. And not that necessarily players need to slow down, because the game does have hitting, has fighting and everything in it. I think sometimes, unfortunately, the NHL does miss some caution when it comes to players and the boards and understanding maybe some of the dynamics of the game. And again, I can understand the Canucks perspective. I can also see it from the Flames perspective too, that, Miller probably could have done a better job of not being so forceful when he did hit him.
Now, let me ask you guys a couple questions, then, because I would probably consider myself at this point neutral between the two almost.
Right, yeah.
Because it doesn't really matter to me either way. So what do you think about this? Now, I love the hit. I thought Miller was lining him up pretty good. Like, he wasn't trying to take him out, obviously, but I thought he had him in his tracks, and he was gonna follow through with this hit no matter what. Now, do you think Rooney hitting the boards makes the hit worse? Like, him spinning kind of a weird way and unfortunately hitting his head into the boards, does that make it a worse hit?
Oh, probably. If there had been more open ice and maybe Rooney could have slid a bit, then it might not have been as impactful than him.
I don't think he would have been injured. I mean, the reason for the injury, from what I can see, is because he hit the boards.
Yeah.
So then that brings the debate back to, in a way, do players get suspended because of intent or result? Because if that hit was 1 foot, 8 inches closer to center ice, or the center of the ice, is that a bad hit at all?
So the way I see it, okay, the way I kind of judge the hit, and again, yeah, okay, you can say I'm a Canucks fan, so there's a little bias there, but the way I see it, the refs didn't give him a penalty, so the refs see it as a clean hit. The league didn't give him any type of fine or any type of, discipline for the hit. So to me, they've investigated, they looked at it, it's a clean hit on their end, and there's no intent, an obvious intent to injure. I don't think Miller's a dirty player.
No, I don't think so either.
And I think you guys as Leaf fans can say the same. I mean, I know Paul's a Flames fan as well, but and I could tell that he was shaken from what happened, because he's looking at it like, he's like, people are going after him, and he's like, what do you want me to do? Like, what else am I supposed to do? So he's trying to explain his position. So yes, I can see where Flames fans would be upset. That being said, I can see I would be in the same position if I were a Flames fan. Like, I would be like, that guy deserves every fight that was thrown his way, because he took out one of our players. But again, I don't believe that Miller was trying to take him out. Now, what your determination of take him out, what that means to you versus what it means to me, sure, maybe he was trying to take him out, like take him away from the puck. He wasn't trying to injure the guy. He wasn't trying to put him in the hospital.
Yeah, I think, because we talked about consistency with player safety and short pairs and everything on our last podcast, I believe it was. It's always going to be based upon perspective and opinion, really, unfortunately, when it comes to that. Like we can look at Morgan Riley last year with the suspension he got. Did he deserve as many games as he did? In personal opinion, from a Leafs fan, I don't think so, and there were lots of opinions of that, but he still got the games that he did. Yet there were other plays last year from other teams that were very similar to Riley's hit, and either didn't get as many games or any games at all. So it's tough, because the consistency on the player safety side doesn't seem to be all that consistent, unfortunately.
I think the sort of rebuttal that I would throw back to that, though, is usually when there's this inconsistency with player safety, there's inconsistency between them and the referees as well, who are actually physically at the game and seeing these things live. Yeah. The referees didn't see fit to call a penalty on Miller for the hit, because to them, he was doing exactly what I explained. He was trying to clear up. He was trying to basically push him off the puck. I personally believe that Rooney lost his balance. His skate got caught in a divot on the ice, and he went headfirst into the boards. Unfortunately, that's what happens. This is hockey. But that being said, as a Canuck fan, I'm sad for Rooney for this happening. Like, I don't think any player deserves that. But I do not for a second believe that Miller did that intentionally.
And I don't think anybody would disagree with you. Any real hockey fan, I would like to think, to be honest. I mean, like I said, foot to the right, and that's we're not even talking about this.
That's right.
It's
Exactly.
because he hit the boards, right?
Yeah.
And he hurt himself, and he's injured.
Yeah.
And that's terrible. That's not a good thing at all, especially at the beginning of the season. But yeah, I mean, Miller's a hard player. He's playing Talkit hockey. He's playing JT Miller hockey.
Yep.
And there's the result, right? Like, lots of people have said he's a community godsend. The guy's unreal with, fans and other teammates, and that's one of the reasons the Canucks are so high on him, right?
His family's very philanthropic. They're philanthropists. they give to charity a lot, and which is really awesome. They're well kind of enthralled in the community, and so the fans really love the Millers, like not just JT but his family, for that support that they bring to the community too. So yes, like I don't think there's an argument, to be fair, I don't think there's an argument from Flames fans that Miller's a bad guy or anything like that. I just think that we probably see the hit as two different kinds of hits.
Absolutely. Yep. And, looking at the game, you can't complain about a 6-5 game. It was very, very entertaining. Mantha's breakaway goal, I thought, was great. Sprung getting the first goal for the Canucks.
I called it, by the way.
There.
I called it.
Yeah.
I did say, nobody scored for the Leafs yesterday game. I was going to be like, who scored the Leafs' first goal yesterday?
Thanks a lot, Joe.
My prediction for yesterday in our little pod chat group was that Nylander would score the first goal for the Leafs and Sprong was going to get the first goal for the Canucks. So I was half right, which it was really exciting to see. Unfortunately, Sprong did get put in the doghouse a little bit yesterday. To be fair, I believe that Talkit was mixing up the lines a little bit, just because the Canucks were kind of playing a little bit after the first period. They kind of stopped playing defense, like I said, and when that happens, he starts changing up the lines a little bit. And so, yeah, it's. I don't believe that. I don't believe like it's going to be something we see a lot of, this season, because he is a good player. He's fast and he's got amazing hands, but it would have been a lot more fun, for me anyway, if the Canucks were to maintain that.
I wanted to say that, for the record, this is Game 2 tonight. Even though the Leafs were shut out last night, I'm going to make my prediction still, because the game has not started yet. We're recording this before they've played. Yep. So, my guess, the first goal is going to be Matthew Nyes. He worked real hard last night. I didn't like him too much in the first period, but the second and third, he was a wrecking ball. He retrieved the puck 3 times late in the third to try to tie the game, get a scoring chance from Matthews and Marner. And I loved just about every bit of his game, minus maybe the first 10 minutes of the first.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Austin tonight. Just coming off of an almost 70-goal season, how can you not pick that guy?
And he's the captain.
He is. That's true. And I had picked JT Miller initially for the Canucks.
Well, he did get a goal. He actually had a Gordie Howe hat trick last night. JT Miller did. Yeah. So
which we discussed prior to it happening.
Yeah, him and Mantha, I think. So he fought Mantha for the hit, and Mantha got a Gordie Howe hat trick before JT got his, which was the tying goal in the third period. So it was a fun game, like based on those type of narratives. I just feel like I wish it would have been more fun for me if the Canucks were to play their proper style.
Yeah, I saw things in the game that I thought were kind of funny or questionable, like Garland's goal. Again, good goal, but Vladar's mask had come off, so it seemed kind of questionable to me at the time that they had scored.
It was questionable for me as a Canuck fan too. I'm like, they're not going to let that go in, right? But so, did you hear the explanation of the rule behind that? No. So what they were talking about in I think it was the intermission where we finally got to hear what the NHL's kind of reasoning behind it is. It's the referee's discretion if the offensive team is in the. I'm trying to remember how they worded it. If the offensive team is in the process of shooting or trying to score, they allow it. And it's the same rule. I don't know if you remember later in the game where Vladar had lost his glove.
Yes.
There was a point where he lost his glove and he's waving his hand in the air, and the ref didn't blow it down because Vancouver was still shooting the puck. They were still on the offensive. And then what happened was I guess they shot the puck and it like deflected in the corner, and that's when they blew it down because Vancouver wasn't on the offensive, right?
Oh, weird.
So it's a league rule. It's actually in the rule books, and they explain that in the intermission kind of after. Because I have seen that happen to Demko in the past, where he's literally like going like this to the ref, hey, I don't have I think it was his glove or his blocker or something like that, and they didn't blow it down, and Demko ended up stopping he made like 2 10-bell saves because they weren't blowing the whistle and he had to stop the puck. But it's because the team is still on the offensive and they have a chance to try and score. And I think what happened with Vladar with the glove was it was actually his own fault that he lost his glove, and that was sort of their reasoning behind it too.
I was going to say, just to be devil's advocate, they would blow the play dead if they think it was an offensive player that helped in.
That's right.
In knocking the piece of equipment off. But
yeah, so in the end, yes, I'm with you. Like if it were my team and somebody were scoring on me where my goalie doesn't have a mask on. Yeah, I feel like that shouldn't count as a goal.
Argue the crap out of that.
Yeah.
What happened with Kuzmenko? Like, did he get hit by some phantom invisible stick?
I know! I saw that too. I was like, so he's reacting like he got a high stick, but there's literally nobody around him.
Like, no evidence of anything.
Yeah. I want to know what the heck's going on. It was really freaking weird. I felt like I was watching one of those TikTok videos where they show you like strange ghosts or whatever, like just random stuff happens. I'm like, what is going on?
you can find the Puckn Pod on TikTok.
Yeah.
You can find the Puckn Pod on TikTok, Twitter, and all the other socials at the Puckn Pod.
Maybe he's just watching too much European football and how they flop. So.
I know, yeah. I mean, maybe that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to get a penalty called, but you got to be careful when you're doing something like that. That could be a diving call coming your way, too.
Absolutely.
So other than the Canucks and Leafs,
yes,
what a night in the NHL it was.
You know what a last two nights, like the first and second night. I watched the first. So I watched the first games of the regular season on Tuesday night, and some pretty exciting hockey. We watched the Utah Hockey Club play their first ever regular season game in the Delta Center, which was actually a really exciting game. I'm a little disappointed that Dylan Guenther is as good as he is, because he should have been drafted by Vancouver, but thank you, Jim Benning.
Trivia question for the future: who scored the first goal in the Utah Hockey Club's history?
Yeah.
Dylan Guenther.
Yeah, and it was a beauty too. Like he scored another goal later on in the game, and I think it was, if I remember correctly, he like brought it from the backhand to forehand really fast and just snapped it in. It was a nice little goal.
He actually had 2 goals in that night.
Yeah.
Impressive. Very happy with that win, actually. I think some of the changes that they made in the offseason, like again, the additional defense help. Ingram's shown that he's going to be a star goaltender. I think I stand by what I said on a few podcasts ago, that I think that they are going to make the playoffs this year. Yeah,
Ingram has been decent for quite some time. I really felt like when he was playing for Arizona, like he was a decent goalie too.
So what about Shesterkin saying, hold my beer last night? $88 million isn't enough.
The last time we had this conversation, we were talking about Swayman in Boston. And then the next day, he signs a major contract. So we're going to talk about Shesterkin as a possibility to want to play somewhere else. Or is it just that he doesn't want that, like he wants more money than what they're giving him?
Yeah, they're saying right now, they're looking at like 12.5 right now a year for him. That's kind of some of the numbers that have been put out there right now.
What is that in Russian?
In rupees? I do not know.
All right, that's the last time we try accents on this show.
No, it's not.
But yeah, it's definitely an intriguing story. I'm thinking like he probably, I mean, when we were talking about Swayman, I said the same thing. There's no way that this ends up with him playing in a Boston uniform, and here he is, signing a major contract, 8 years, 8.25, I believe it is. It's just baffling to me that it could still work out in Boston's favor after all the crap that went down, and now we're looking at Shesterkin doing the exact same thing. But what's your opinion on the Shesterkin thing?
Basically, I don't know how you can argue that he's not worth it at this point. And really, like, the same way a lot of us, I think, either Leafs fans or people around the league last year said the Leafs should just sign Nylander, get it done already. He's shown that he's got the worth. 6-0 to start the season against a pretty good team. He's showing his worth. You know, sometimes you just have to bite the bullet. I don't know necessarily as high as projected as what's being projected right now, but he is worth a double-digit salary each year, I'd say, for sure.
Speaking of 6-0, so talking about other games that were played this year, Edmonton losing 6-0 to Winnipeg yesterday, and all I can think of is, this is because I'm a Canucks fan, let's be honest, and I'm sure Flames fans are with me on this, but this is the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup this year?
So I think what happened is that they didn't dig in right puckn now.
Right.
That's what I think
Nice
happened.
reference to the Face-Off series on Prime. For those of you who haven't watched it yet, check it out. It's pretty sweet. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And here's the thing. The big narrative for the surprising losses so far in the first couple of days is it's just the first game. Yeah. It's the first game. Yeah. Let's play another game and then we'll see how it is. But that's what they said last year. If you remember, Edmonton lost 8-1 to Vancouver in game number 1 last season. Now, that being said, they still turned it on at the end of the season and they still made it to the Stanley Cup final. So good on them for doing that. But it becomes a slippery slope, doesn't it?
And I think you have to look at the fact that, you know, there was a coaching change last year for Edmonton where their turnaround happened after the coaching change. So it's the same coach from the change last year that started off 6-0. So maybe it's just an abnormality to start the season. They're just starting off slow, or maybe this could be a consistent thing. It's hard to say. You know, hockey seems to bring surprises every year.
A little hangover after the letdown, I guess.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I mean, they had some turnover, right, on the roster, and that's going to take time to gel. Training camp, a lot of people say it's too long, but when your big players, the people that are going to be in your top 6, probably top 9, like, they're not playing that much in the preseason, to be honest with you.
Right.
McDavid, how many games did he play in the preseason? I don't actually know, but if I were to guess, I bet you it was 3 or less.
Yeah.
Probably, right? Yeah. You want to see where your prospects are. You want to see if there's going to be any surprises. You want to make sure your entire organization is learning and knowing your systems. It's basically a development camp in a way, not just preseason, right?
Yeah, and the development sort of continues on through the first few games or first few weeks of the regular season to get your structure underway, to get your special teams. These type of things take time, especially because you have new players on your team. And I use Vancouver as an excuse because, you know, they've got a lot of new players on their team who have to get used to the coaching style and you know, the teammates that they're playing with. So it does take a lot.
And I would say if you look at it from the other side, too, it's going to be the same with the other teams when you're in preseason. If you take when the Leafs played Montreal, the first game that they played, basically the entire roster of the Leafs was playing. And most of Montreal's farm team was playing. Like, it wasn't very much, right? And then the second game they played, it was the opposite. And where Montreal basically had their entire team and the Leafs didn't. So those matchups aren't even actually happening in the preseason when you do play your star players.
That's right.
Right? So until you get into game action, whatever you've prepared for doesn't really matter. This is maybe a bit philosophical, but like to paraphrase Mike Tyson years ago, he says, you can prepare all you want for a fight. As soon as you take one in the chin off the bell, your plan's out the window, pal.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, you got to recalculate.
It's called audible, right? In football, it's called an audible for a reason. And that's the way it works. I mean, Rick Tocchet's changing up his lines last night because he had to call an audible. His team wasn't bringing the ability and skill that they're supposed to bring, so he's got to change it up to make something work.
Seems weird, though, in a way, if you think about it, because it was working for the first period.
That's right. Yeah, it definitely was obvious to me that they stopped defending, they stopped hitting. That was the most obvious thing for me watching that game, is that they stopped hitting, and that's when Calgary was able to take control of the game. So there you go. That's a coaching style kind of obvious slip up on the team.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting watching, obviously, the new season and, everything that's involved. The new players joining teams. We're talking about, Edmonton having a bunch of new players. And so drafting players, too, like Cody Ceci and Dylan Holloway and Broberg. If we're looking at, I guess, teams trying to keep things consistent, there were a couple of re-signings during the first week here. Carter Verhaeghe, literally right after the Florida Boston game, signed an 8-year extension, $56 million. The Senators did extend Allmark for about 4 years, $33 million.
If I'm not mistaken, they signed him for the same exact amount AAV that Swayman got in Boston, 8.25. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that is correct. Actually, do the math.
I saw something on Twitter when they announced it, and how it was literally Swayman 8.25, Allmark 8.25. Kind of a way. I don't know if it's an homage or if it's on purpose even, but it definitely was. It made me laugh.
I'm wondering, just because of how similar, I guess, Allmark's and Swayman's numbers were in Boston, Ottawa probably might have just used that as a sign where, hey, Swayman just got this for 8 years. We'll give you this for half that time.
Yeah, like I think Allmark is a good goalie. Like, he's definitely worth, I don't know about 8.25, but he's definitely worth something like that. And it's nice. It's good on them to sign him for just 4, just to kind of see how things go. Because if he drops off, you don't want to hold on to a guy like that for that much money for 8 years.
Yeah, and he's, I believe, 31 now?
31, yeah.
Yeah, so Allmark obviously being 31, he's a later age than Swayman. So, like I said, the value for the per year pay is I'd say right on par.
Yeah, for that kind of money, for sure. I can see Allmark re-signing at 35 to much less money, but still re-signing to play. And if he decides to play in Ottawa or somewhere else, at that age, I think he'll still be serviceable.
Talking about the Ottawa Senators, a former Ottawa Senator got a 5-year extension with the Seattle Kraken, and that's Joey Daccord.
Yeah.
There were some more player movement around the league, just off the waiver wire.
The waivers have been nuts. Like, can I just say, specifically with waivers, Vancouver picked up Yuri Patera off waivers from Boston after Boston had picked up Patera from Vancouver off waivers. Because Boston signed Swayman, they no longer can use him. So Vancouver gets him back and basically gets to send him directly down to the AHL, which was really exciting, kind of like weird. But Vancouver has been able to hang on to a lot of their depth this round of waivers. It's been interesting because you're kind of thinking there's no way this guy is going to make it through waivers. Brandstrom, who Vancouver had traded for, I believe we talked about it last podcast, if I remember correctly. Brandstrom, who they traded for, they had to put him on waivers right away, and he made it. He didn't get picked up on waivers, and so he's now in the AHL. So Vancouver actually gets to hold on to the depth that they traded for, which is pretty exciting.
That's still pretty crazy for a mid-first rounder from, I believe, about 7 years ago.
That's... Yeah, he's 24, 25, and he's only making like $800,000.
Yeah.
So and he's serviceable. I mean, he's a left shot D. It surprises me that nobody even took a swing at him, to be honest.
James Reimer was picked up by the Anaheim Ducks. Zach Aston Reese was picked up by the Columbus Blue Jackets, filling in obviously some more depth. The Knights claimed Raphael Lavoie from the Oilers, so they're losing some depth.
They put him back on waivers, and the Oilers claimed him back again.
Oh, never mind then.
So it's another situation with the waivers.
And looking at the other Alberta team, the Calgary Flames, they did lose one of the prospects from the Tkachuk trade, Cole Schwindt, to the Knights as well.
I don't feel bad for them. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to make enemies, that's all. So that's a busy hockey regular season so far, and it's only like 3 days in. But, boys, let's talk a little bit about the NBA now, because I know things are starting to ramp up for them. We're going to look at a preseason and regular season coming up soon.
Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about basketball. I'll just touch on a few major points that are happening right now, just as preseason's underway. In Toronto, and this has been under mixed reaction, I think, and that's them deciding to retire number 15, which is Vince Carter, to the rafters. So I'd be curious to see. I don't really have an issue with it. I mean, I don't think he didn't leave on very good terms, I guess. But you also don't know what happens really behind the scenes. Only what's reported, only what you can form an opinion on for yourself. But the guy did iconic things with the team, except win a championship. So I don't know. I don't really have an issue with it. And to be honest, the Raptors don't really have a long storied history, so to speak. So why not kind of start somewhere and
I think most Raptors fans can agree that Vince Carter is one of the best Raptors they've ever had.
I would think so.
100%.
I mean, he would be comparable to, I think, somebody like Matt Sundin for Toronto, for the Leafs.
Oh, yeah. What I would say is that if you look at it in certain situations where some players that have played for the Raptors, there were a few of them that sort of started their career with Toronto or the early stages of the career, and then they were better after they left.
Yeah.
And then you get some like veteran players. You see it a lot in hockey too. Towards the end of their careers, they switch teams, and the Raptors have had a few veterans over the years that have done well for their team. But like Vince Carter was in his prime when he was in Toronto.
That's right.
So
yeah, he definitely put the Raptors on the map, and certainly a lot of Canadian basketball players that have come through the draft since him being drafted have stated that he inspired them. There's a documentary that it had R.J. Barrett on it. It had Anthony Bennett, even though he was a first overall pick who didn't work out. He said that Vince Carter was his inspiration, and he was electrifying to watch. Like the dunks that he made, especially during that All-Star game where he had put it through his legs or he'd put his arm through the hoop. Those kind of things, those are memories you won't forget. And that's almost like 20 years ago now that happened.
So let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the preseason with the NBA in general, but not just the Raptors, but NBA in general. What can we expect so far going into this preseason?
Well, there's a few things to note that are exciting for the game, I would say. And there was already a trade. There was a pretty big trade, actually. Karl Anthony Towns.
I feel like every trade in the NBA is a big trade.
It seems to be these days because they involve so many multiple pieces.
Yeah.
Whether it be players, whether it be draft picks.
20 draft picks.
I was going to say, didn't I see like at the trade deadline last season, I swear I saw like draft picks going into 2033, like random, like super futuristic draft picks.
It seems like I think the NBA draft, your like generational talents seem to be in like the top 3 picks. Everything else like that seems to be hit or miss. You can either find a generational talent or you can find at least useful players at that point. I think that's why there's a lot more openness to trade those picks, and there's usually a lot of conditions to the picks. Like even with the Jakob Poeltl trade, where if the pick had landed in the top 6, then Toronto would have kept that pick. But it landed outside of it, so it went over to San Antonio.
So in that trade for CAT, for short, Karl Anthony Towns.
You should. The folks at home don't get to see you shuffle your shoulders when you
CAT. It was actually a three-team trade. So the Knicks got Karl Anthony Towns from Minnesota, and the draft rights to James Nungi. Yeah, I'm gonna butcher that. If someone knows how to pronounce it, feel free to comment, leave an audio comment, etc.
That being said,
I don't
think Brandon would still be able to pronounce it, but
that's right. Yeah, probably not. Yeah, and his draft rights were from Charlotte.
Charlotte Hornets.
Okay. Yeah. Again, NBA teams seem to move around these days so much.
Yeah, they changed their names too.
Minnesota Timberwolves received Julius Randle from the Knicks, Dante DiVincenzo, from the Knicks, Keita Bates-Diop from the Knicks, and a future first-round pick from the Knicks via the Pistons, actually.
How future? Is it like 2030?
It does not say.
Oh, yeah. So,
yeah.
We'll find out in the future, I suppose.
Thanks for now
coming
letting
off
people
of
know that I'm
NBA.com.
reading.
Sorry, buddy.
And
that was all off the top of his head.
The Hornets received Charlie Brown from the Knicks, Daquan Jeffries from the Knicks, Dwayne Washington Jr. from the Knicks, 2 future second-round picks from the Knicks, a 2025 second-round pick via the Timberwolves, and cash considerations.
Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, with Charlie Brown, does Snoopy go along too? Come on, guys.
And you are not going to edit out that silence either. You're not doing it.
those are, like I said, these are the trades you see in the NBA these days. Is like multiple pieces and names you've never heard of before, but I'm sure they're good. But you almost don't know how to react to it because there's so many pieces.
There's also some NBA history made. First father-son duo to play. Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about LeBron and Bronny. First father-son duo to appear on court together in preseason.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something to be kind of excited to watch. I would watch that.
And I think the reason you probably have to be excited about it is because really in the world and in the southern United States right now, especially on the East, not so good news.
Yeah.
And actually NBA games, preseason games are being canceled due to Hurricane Milton, of course.
Also NHL regular season
yeah,
games.
I would imagine. Yeah,
the Tampa Bay Lightning have yet to play in their home building. Vancouver is supposed to play them on Tuesday next week. So it'll be interesting to see if that gets postponed or not. But their game on Saturday was postponed, which is coming up. I believe it was supposed to be against Boston, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see, games get canceled because of it. I mean, we're used to seeing games get canceled from the COVID era, but this is something much more serious.
It's been a pretty intense storm. Like, there's been tornadoes going with the hurricane as well, and it literally blew the roof off the Rays Stadium.
That's right.
Tropicana Field it doesn't have a roof. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'd think that that's pretty thick material that they've got going on as their entire roof for that building.
I believe it's a fabric. It's a fabric material because they were talking about it on the news. And you could see, like, they literally had video footage of the roof being torn apart by the wind. Yeah, shredded. And so I'm sure it's not cheap to replace, but, hopefully there's no other real damage to the building.
Besides water damage, maybe.
Besides water. I mean, that's expected, right?
That's expected, exactly.
And really, without getting into kind of all the major games of the preseason, because they're just going to keep happening, I'll just mention one other thing, and that was former shooting guard for the Raptors and won a championship with them in 2019. Danny Green has retired from the game of basketball.
Crazy. Time flies, man.
That trade to get him and Kawhi was, that couldn't have worked out any more perfectly than it did.
So, talking a lot about the Rays and, of course, the issues they're going to have with their building, they'll be fine. They'll be back playing next year. I have no doubt in my mind. They can play without a roof, let's be honest. But, let's talk a little bit about the Major League Baseball playoffs. Tell us a little bit about what we've been seeing so far with the playoffs.
Well, we are obviously into the first round of playoffs here. What do you guys think about the Mets beating the Phillies, as we've projected possibly that the Phillies would win that series?
Yeah, it's been an interesting series. Lots of emotion in that series, right? And was it Alonso hit a grand slam last night?
And, I believe it was Lindor.
Lindor, okay. Did Alonso hit a home run in that game too? Or was it the previous game then? If you're talking the Lindor grand slam, beautifully done. And I don't even just mean the hit. And what's making headlines is the fact, because it's been an issue all year in the MLB, is that he hit a grand slam to basically win the game. It put them ahead, right? That wasn't a walk-off. That just put them ahead in that game?
I believe within reach, because I believe they were down 6-1, and it had brought it up to 6-5.
6-5. Okay, so they were still just one run behind. So we're talking a playoff game, division series. This is a big hit. This is a huge hit. Yeah. And he puts his head down, goes right into his trot, doesn't stand there and watch it, doesn't pump his chest to the fans.
There's no ego involved.
Flip the bat like it's 2015, puts his head down and just rounds the bases, right? Yeah. And that's a pro, that's a big moment, and I think that to me makes it even bigger than what it actually was. It's above the game at that point.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the one thing that I like, you take away like the... what's the word I'm trying to say? Like the selfishness of the sport, because it is a team sport.
Talking about Grand Slams, there was another Grand Slam happening in one of the other games. Do you guys know which series that was?
Why don't you tell us, Paul?
I can do that. The Dodgers and Padres are tied up 2-2, and Teoscar, former Blue Jay Hernandez, got a grand slam that game.
So funny you say that because I was thinking it was that game, and I was excited after the game. I was watching the post-game interview, and Hazel May was covering it from Sportsnet.
Oh, right on.
And who obviously, with Teoscar being former Blue Jays, I guess she went to go answer her question or ask her question, and Teoscar just goes, "Hey, Hazel, like what's up, girl?" I thought that was really respectful and really cool, actually. Yeah.
Looking at some more of the series here, the Royals had a surprising win last night against the Yankees. They're now at 2-1. How do you think? Who do you think is going to go ahead with that series win? Do you think the Royals have a chance of a comeback, or do you think it's still going to be the Yankees?
As discussed previously, there is always going to be a chance in the game of baseball. There's always going to be a chance because most of the time, if your pitching is above average, it's going to give you a chance to win, right? And yeah, the hitting's good. You know, these players their workout routines, their health regimes, the way they train, everything's the best it's ever been. The technology in the wood, as much as that sounds stupid, it's true. How they formulate, like everything is at an elevated level, the highest it's ever been. But at the same time, man, you
can never count out the Yankees because they are the Yankees. Yeah, but at the same time, you're right. Like I think a lot of times, one thing that people don't think about when it comes to baseball is that it is a managed game, and the way they manage lineups, the way they manage, who pitches when and things like that, those come into play, especially in the playoffs, right? And so I've seen series get turned around based on changing up the way you manage your rotation. So yeah, I 100% agree with you in that anything can happen. It's just a matter of making sure you're making the right decisions at the right time.
Considering management, like I said, makes a big difference. Maybe there needs to be a change in how the game is managed in Toronto.
Oh yeah, we had that discussion already, but apparently that's not happening. So
one bad decision can change the course of the game and the series, right? So it really is important to have staff around you and lots of baseball minds and years of experience to make the right play, especially in the playoffs.
Very true. Very true. The other series that's going on is the Guardians and the Tigers right now. Detroit won their game to not be eliminated so far. Kind of the same question about the Royals and Yankees. Do you think the Tigers have a chance to come back against the Guardians?
Well, they're the hottest team in baseball going into the playoffs, so I would say absolutely, yeah. They've come back and tied it up. Were they weren't down 2-0 though, were they? It was 1-1. And then 2-1. Yeah, I think it was. I don't think the Tigers were ever down 2-0 in the series. So tied now, and this is a 3-game win, right? You don't have to win 4 games.
Just the first
best of 5
after the wild card series is first to 3.
Yeah, so best of 5 series, and so hey, one more game. Guess we'll see.
Very true.
It's exciting. The cool. This is the fun thing about playoffs in any sport. The chance that anything could happen. So that's why they always say if you're in, you could win. Right? It's that same statement. And I don't care what sport it is. There's always a chance for a team to win. So that's the exciting thing about playoffs in any sport. I believe now it is time to introduce our new segment of this pod. We had our new segment for Brandon last week, which of course is What's Buggin' Brando? And he did say
everything.
That's right. Now, we're not doing that this week. This week we are introducing a brand new segment called Shocked and Appalled.
Shocking, right?
Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Paul, tell us what we are shocked and appalled about.
So I got a few things that have been I find that have been kind of shocking and appalling in the entertainment industry and in sports. Obviously, a lot of the big news that's out there right now is on P. Diddy, formerly Puff Daddy, and the major scandal that he's in right now in regards to being federally charged for racketeering, sex trafficking, and engaging in prostitution with minors.
Wow.
It's all you keep hearing and seeing around in the news is that some bomb is about to go off.
Yeah.
Now, what is this? Are they just trying to hype everything up? Is this the lawyers?
No, I think what it is there's a list of, this is what's speculated. There's a list of celebrities' names who are basically attached to participating in these actions with him. So it's not just him, but it's people who basically helped him do these things. And it's scary how for me, it's scary because there's a lot of celebrities out there that I look up to and that I think are good people who may end up on that list, and you're just going like, wow, like I can't believe I supported that person for that, but I do not 100% do not support that behavior.
Well, it's appalling, right? Like that's we're going with the segment here. It's for anyone that's obviously grown up watching Puff Daddy and obviously that time genre when it came to rap and everything like that. Like he was iconic. He had superstar girlfriends and spouses. With looking at J-Lo, and the fact that there were celebrities that were possibly involved with this. There's 120 victims that come forward, and these are all what's being put out there right now. Whether it's actually truthful, we'll have to wait till obviously it goes to the court system. But you had like security guards in it. He's had like I said other celebrities involved with it. He put Justin Bieber through the ringer with it when he was 15 years old, and Justin Bieber's come out with it.
Has he actually? Because I was going to say I hadn't seen anything where he's specifically said anything or agreed to anything, but there is like video clips that I've seen when he was younger with P. Diddy, and kind of you could see the awkwardness in his face and things like that during interviews and stuff. It's scary. Yeah,
he hasn't come out and I think directly said anything right at P. Diddy, but he has mentioned that it's affected him. And there's no mental health issues with Justin Bieber right now in regards to that. He's had some depression, suicidal thoughts, the whole works. So when you're affected at that young of an age, and we talk about woke things right now in regards to transgenderism and all those things too, and how that there's conservative liberal sides to that. It's one of those things that. At a young age, those nefarious situations and situations that no kid his age should ever go through, the fact that that's happened to him and he's coming out still on the good side of it now, says a lot to him, lends a lot to the support that he's had. But it's really sad that he went through something like that from somebody that's very powerful in Sean Puff Daddy Combs.
It actually makes more sense when you think about his. And I'm speaking about Justin Bieber here, when he was acting kind of like rebellious in his younger years and doing things, getting away with things that like most kids wouldn't get away with. It kind of makes sense when you think about everything he went through, his way of lashing out to society 100%. For letting it happen.
I'm so curious about this list, this so-called list, and when this so-called bomb is going to drop, because they keep hinting at it, but when's it going to happen and how's it going to happen? Yeah. Who's going to be involved, right?
There is kind of a hint video on X right now where P. Diddy is sitting with his son in front of a camera talking about guests that he's inviting to his birthday. And they're saying that there's a lot of, I shouldn't say they're saying, there's a lot of speculation that the list that he's using for his birthday party is the list of people that were involved.
Right.
So now we are promoting propaganda on possibly the biggest scam in the world in the last decade or two, if not longer, and they are promoting it in a way.
Yeah,
it's
everywhere. It's everywhere. Don't believe everything you read on Twitter or X, but do your research. But I think in the end, for me, I'm just sort of going to sit back and wait and see. Like I said, I just hope it's not somebody that I truly look up to and somebody that I support as an entertainer, whether it's musically or as an actor or something like that.
If you are on X and you do want to read something, you could read the Puck and Pod content.
That's right. We have a lot of great content, and I think X and TikTok are probably the best content we put out there, other than, of course, the actual podcast.
Not to toot our horns, but I'm going to. We hit a little mini milestone today, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
We hit 2,000 views on one of our latest TikToks, so...
Would you say it was our silliest one?
That one wasn't our silliest one. It wasn't,
no, right.
And we've got more coming too, so be sure to check it out.
We're just a couple of old guys doing funny stuff on TikTok.
So talking about other controversies and criticism, one of the hockey insiders out in the NHL right now, Frank Saravalli, is under a bit of fire for comments that he made about Gaudreau's passing.
I hate to throw judgment on another person, especially somebody who's in the media, but he really seems like he thrives on that controversy. Yeah. Now, this being said, this is a really touchy subject.
It is.
Right? Like he said something that, from what it sounds like, the Gaudreau family doesn't seem to be all that, upset about. However, the fans of the NHL are, and that's why it's important to talk about.
Well, and I'll quote exactly what he said. He said, with a little help from Goodrow, the Columbus Blue Jackets will win the 2025 draft lottery. It's the only consolation prize on a brutal year, but hope and help is on the way. Bananas that the Blue Jackets have never won the lottery.
So the Vancouver Canucks have never won the draft lottery either, but it's a stupid statement. Let's be honest.
Stupid.
I think what I will say, and to be as neutral as possible, is I think in a way I can understand what he was trying to say. Hey, Johnny's with you guys. Go out and have a good year. Here's your chance to do what you can.
That's right.
But at the same time, do you disagree? Or
just to me, it lacks professionalism. Unfortunately, when it comes to,
I don't disagree that it lacks professionalism.
Yeah.
I just think that if you think about it a little bit differently, I can see a sliver of what he was trying to do.
Yeah,
but don't do it, man.
That was
Stay away from it.
That was an ignorant statement, I think, based on just the wording he chose. He could have said something along the lines of, with Goudreau at their side spiritually, or some statement like that, then they will, they'll probably get a future star player in the draft or something along those lines. But when you're using the words that he used, it's like saying they're benefiting off of him dying.
We do live in a world now that you kind of do have to start watching what you're saying. Like, people can be triggered really easily, and there's laws in place for some stuff like that now. Like, even with like I said, discriminating against somebody in any fashion can get you criminally charged if
100%.
it's especially if it's kept common too.
I think what we as a society kind of lack these days is respect for other people.
100%.
And I think that's where the fine line is. Like, the argument is, the world is too woke these days. But what the woke people are trying to bring back is just respect for other people. So with that respect, it's like, have some respect for the Goudreau family when you think of a statement like that.
You still have to walk a line with that too, because I find there's a lot of extremism on that side too, where people take it a little too far. Like, something that is actually quite subtle is made a lot larger than it needs to be. And
100%.
It's, unfortunately, we're a world where there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of stuff that's happening around the world right now that breeds conflict. And there has to be, we're talking about respect. There has to be respect given, but it also has to be earned on that side
100%.
too.
The great Bob Marley once said, "One love, one life. Let's get together and be all right."
100%. You know what? That should be our theme song for this show.
One love.
Let's not get any copyright strikes, but yes, 100%. I agree with you. I think that is definitely something to be shocked and appalled about.
100%. Another thing I've been finding shocking, another thing that I found shocked and appalling was the MLB's greatest hitter, all-time leader, passed away. And guess what? He's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Pete Rose. I get why they didn't give him a chance to get in the Hall of Fame when he was caught gambling. You shouldn't be gambling at all if you're a professional sports athlete, but for you to be gambling on your sport that you're playing is even worse. But he deserves some sort of record in the Hall of Fame, let's be honest.
Well, and at this point now, obviously it has to be posthumously the fact that he's passed away now. And it wasn't necessarily that he was so much stricken. He actually did come into an agreement with the commissioner at the time. That was Bartlett Giamatti. He signed an agreement that he would have a lifetime ban from baseball because he placed wagers on the Reds through legal bookmakers back in 1989.
The Reds, the team that he was playing for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really, really sad, unfortunate. Like, I'm sure Pete Rose in a lot of ways is a good person and just made a really poor choice, obviously. But, trying to make money on the side off of something that is a large business, I understand.
And you're already
why.
making money, good money.
Exactly. And money that you made from that league.
That's right.
So you're making money on the side now from that league. It's understandable. It's one thing when you are a fan and an outsider, but when you're part of the game, it's completely different.
I agree.
Well, let's be honest with each other, too. There are a lot of asterisks in the history of the game of baseball.
Yeah.
Overall,
and
right?
any sport.
But I would say probably baseball more so. One of the reasons that it's one of the oldest professional sports.
True.
Right? But controversy surrounds the game and has done for years. And the guy's paid his dues. I don't know. I don't really know what my opinion is on it, but I do think that it's a bit sad.
It is.
I think there should be some sort of recognition.
I agree. I agree. And, recognize him for what he did, not what he did as a player, not what he did as a civilian in that gambling. Give him some credit for the fact that he was the greatest hitter in the league.
100%. The least they could do at this point.
Yeah.
And kind of the last thing I'm finding at least appalling these days is the costs of things. The streaming services are even going up right now, and there's these different levels now. You can either have ones that have ads in them, and if you're something like YouTube, you have like ads like every 2 minutes on a 25-minute video, or you can go as far as like Netflix or Prime right now. That again, if you're subscribing to an ad-filled one, it could be 2 or 3 at least. But I remember when we had these services at a decent rate without having to watch ads at all. Now I understand major companies need to make money, and getting ad service does that for you.
A really great way for major companies to make money is to sponsor our show.
That is true. Check out the puckn pod. We're here.
No, I think that's a valid thing to be shocked and appalled about. The way streaming services are going up and up and up, and it's not just that, but I think about you guys when I think about the fact that you guys pay for your center ice package and you do the online one, right, Paul?
I do, yes.
So what happens when the Leafs play a game on Amazon Prime that isn't broadcast on Sportsnet? You don't get to watch that game unless you have a Prime membership, correct?
I believe that is the case. I don't think Center Ice would have coverage on it.
The exception is Sportsnet Plus. They do cover every out-of-market game.
Including those? Yeah, those. That's good. There are people out there who probably don't have that option, in which case they're going to miss out on 4 games this year. And I was talking with somebody the other day who has that package, and they're also Leaf fans, and they said, I pay for center ice. And I said, well, what are you going to do when, the game is going to, or when you're going to get 4 games on Prime this year? And she's like, we're lucky that we have a Prime membership, but if I don't have a Prime membership, I don't get to watch that game. Or at least legally, I don't get to watch that game. So it's definitely frustrating when you consider the amount of options there are. You have to pay that much more money just to be able to watch, say, 4 more games.
Well, let me give you some numbers here, right? Like, I'm talking about the ad one. There are premium ones you can get that don't have the ads. But if we're looking at, say, the ad ones, price isn't terrible, but again, it all adds up. Netflix right now, to get it with the ads, is $6.99 a month. Disney, especially if you bundle it with Hulu, is $9.99 a month. Prime Video is $8.99 a month.
Now, Hulu, by the way, is only available in the United States.
That is true.
In Canada, we don't get Hulu, so we don't have that Disney option unless it's bundled with, say, Crave or something like that, right?
Exactly. Paramount, $5.99 a month, and Apple TV is $9.99 a month. Again, these are all if you watch with the ads. Now, if you're wanting to pay some of the extra costs here, it's like I said, this is where it starts to get kind of a bit ridiculous.
I don't want to tell you how much I pay for Netflix. It's ridiculous. It's very ridiculous.
I'm going to assume it's probably in the $25 range.
Not that much, but close.
So at Netflix, you can get, again, if you're doing premium and you're doing without the ads, you can either pay $15.50 a month to get standard service, which gives you 2 screens, or you can pay $24 for the premium. It gives you 4 screens and no ads.
I've got the 2 screens. But I think there's actually another tier that you might not have there, where you pay a little bit more and it gives you 4K.
Yes.
And so I have a 4K TV, so I want to watch my movies in 4K if I have that option. So
I am very lucky with my cable package. We get Netflix for free.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah.
Looking at obviously I talked about Disney. You're looking at about $14 to $15 a month. Again, this is ad-free. Amazon Prime is about $15 a month, ad-free. Paramount Plus is about $12 a month, ad-free. And then Apple is basically the only one that kind of stays quo at the $9.99. Sportsnet Plus is one that I subscribe to. If you're doing the yearly purchase on it, it went from about $180 a year last year to $250. So it had a pretty significant jump in terms of the annual cost.
I imagine the monthly cost still goes up too.
It's the monthly cost right now. You're looking at $20 a month just for the standard, and that doesn't give you everything included. It only gives you all the national games for the hockey. Still covers Blue Jays and the Raptors, but it doesn't give you anything else after that. If you want the premium service that gives you all the out-of-market games, and being a Maple Leafs fan, I do want to catch as many of those games as I can. It's $34.99, so you're looking at an extra $15, but it does give you like the WWE network and soccer games and all that stuff. So it gives you a wide variety. It's a premium for sure, but it's a significant jump too.
When you guys, because you guys pay for your services to watch Leaf games, you don't get blackouts, right?
No, there's no such thing as a blackout.
No such thing as a blackout.
No, so what you would see, like for me on cable, when I look at my TV guide, so to speak, if that's what it's actually called, I don't know, TV listings, and with mine I have the sports package. So for TSN, I've got TSN 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but oftentimes either 4 and 5 or just 5 are blacked out. Right? There are instances then where there will be a regional Leafs game where TSN 1 will have curling on, TSN 2 will have poker, TSN 3 will also have poker, TSN 4 will be the Leafs at the Senators, and then TSN 5 will be blacked out. Or it'll say 4K something. So when it does that, when you see on TSN 4, for example, that the Leafs are playing, that means it'll be on a certain channel on Center Ice.
Right.
Because they're just showing you now on Center Ice the regional broadcast that is blacked out in Western Canada.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So that makes more sense. So that kind of makes the package worth it because you're not missing anything. I still don't understand the purpose of a blackout. It makes no sense to me. Like, why would you not want people to watch your sports? Like, you know, why are you blocking people from being able to watch? Yeah, but I mean, more eyes technically means more money, right? Wouldn't you agree? Like, you're selling more merchandise because more people are able to watch your product. So, I don't know. Maybe somebody can say in the comment section, let us know, what do you think the reason behind a blackout is? Because for me, it literally makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So, you know, Bettman's argument years ago was the fact that it was to build up fan loyalty for the region that they're blacking out. But why wouldn't you want more fans to be able to see your game? Wouldn't that build the popularity that much more?
You want, I mean, I don't think blackouts exist in the United States.
No, I don't think
they do. You know, sure, certain channels you don't pick up, say in New York City, that to watch a Chicago game or something like that. But I feel like they don't black out. If you have that channel, they don't black out the game.
What I will say is, when on the Center Ice package, any Leaf game that you find is always either the TSN or the Sportsnet broadcast, or a CBC, I guess, if you want to include that,
right?
Which is still Sportsnet.
Well, the CBC ones, they're all national broadcast games, anyways.
That's right.
So they're not going to black out a game on that. But
if the Leafs are in Philadelphia, for example, you're not going to see MSNBC broadcast.
Right.
You will see whoever has the rights to that game, whether it be TSN or Sportsnet, as their commentators there, which I love because, I mean, having said that, sometimes it's nice to hear some neutral commentators talk about your team, and they mention sometimes things that you don't even really notice. Like, somebody will pump up a fourth liner about something they did a couple games ago, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot he did that. That's pretty, things like that is kind of neat sometimes.
I admit it's a little bittersweet because I am looking forward to seeing the prime broadcast of the 4 Canucks games that they're going to be doing this year. But I'm also, the reason why it's bittersweet is because Mark Messier is one of the analysts, and of course Canuck fans all hate Mark Messier. I'll get into that in a whole other pod, but yeah, it's definitely it's going to be interesting to kind of see the difference behind that broadcast and what I'm used to, which is a Sportsnet broadcast. So I think you're right in terms of being shocked and appalled with the prices of these streaming services to go along with people like us who I have a cable package at home that we're already paying for, plus the streaming services. So it gets a little pricey.
Well, and if you look back 10 years ago, right? Like if we're looking at it right now, like everything's adding up depending on how many services you subscribe to. You could be looking at like a $200 bill in terms of what you're paying for your subscribed services.
Minimum.
Compared to like say 10 years ago where it might have been almost half of that. It's kind of crazy.
Or less.
10
years ago,
services.
I probably only had Netflix.
Yeah.
Right? Well, are you guys comfortable sharing how many services you subscribe to?
I have to think about it, to be honest. I have so many. Like, I got to think about it. I think I have all but. So, do you mind if I start? I've got Netflix, Prime, Disney Plus. I don't have any of the sports ones because I have the sports package. I don't need to pay for Center Ice because my team is covered. It's a local team, so there's no issue there. But I kind of would like to have the Center Ice package though, because I love watching hockey. I'll watch all the teams play. That would be cool to be able to just watch games whenever.
I usually switch over in the intermissions.
Yeah.
And I don't usually watch the intermission show. I'll just watch another hockey game.
So for me, I think it's Netflix, Prime, Disney Plus. I feel like there's another one, but I can't think of it. I don't have Apple. I know that. We'll say that's it. So I've got 3.
So I've got Netflix, Prime, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, and Apple Plus, as well as Sportsnet Plus. So I got 6 of them I subscribe to.
But do you also have cable at home as well?
No.
Okay,
so
that's the difference. Yeah, this is on top of cable for me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we pay cable. We have Netflix, which we don't actually pay for, like I say, because it comes through our cable package. But we do pay for Prime Video, but we have ads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
ours.
do too. Yeah. We do too.
I also pay for Disney Plus and Paramount Plus.
Yeah,
we have those.
I forgot I do actually pay the premium on the YouTube service too, because I really can't stand watching the ads.
YouTube ads, and you know what? They're getting worse and worse. That's probably another shocked and appalled for another episode. Literally, the amount of YouTube ads, it's ridiculous.
If there's something that you do want to watch on YouTube that doesn't have any ads, you should visit the Puckn Pod.
Technically, actually, though, we do have ads. Because our pods are long enough, YouTube will place their ads for us.
I haven't noticed.
Yeah, I haven't noticed either, but I'm sure that's a thing.
Shh, don't tell them.
And to any,
I don't want to give people false information.
To any future sponsors out there, we're happy to sponsor or have you sponsor us in the future.
Make sure you do subscribe to our YouTube channel though, because it's great to listen to if you're out and about and you want to just throw on the Puckn Pod and you don't have, say, Spotify or anything else. YouTube is a great way to listen to us too. And eventually we will be putting video out there. We're working on it. So, you're currently just looking at our Puckn Pod logo. We will have video at some point.
But because we've only got audio now, I'm curious, what are you guys listening to these days?
Ooh, audio.
Well, we just started obviously the NHL season, and one of the best parts to starting out the season is the intro to the team for the year. They try to hype you up with the music that they're introducing the team with, and I find this is a great time to talk about those songs that kind of really hype you up.
Hype songs.
Some of those things that you remember, either ones that you like, ones that you listen to, or like when I used to play floor hockey or road hockey, there'd always be the same kind of grouping of songs that you'd listen to.
Let me guess, Too Unlimited is in there somewhere.
No, I don't think so. No, it's not.
Twilight Zone, Too Unlimited.
We got,
maybe that's a little too old for you.
No, I know the song. Okay. I know the song.
No,
well.
I just meant like in terms of being into it.
Maybe
because it was more like when I was a kid, we would listen to we'd play basketball in the school gym and listen to Twilight Zone and all those Whoop There It Is, those type of songs. Thinking of the Mighty Ducks movie and stuff, but
nice.
Those are not my suggestions for the record, just naming songs. But let's start with you, Paul. Let's talk about your, say, 3 favorite hype songs.
Sure. So my first song that anytime I've ever been out to watch a game or been out to a pub or a bar or even just want to get ramped up for something, Song 2 by Blur is one of those songs that really just gets you right into the mood of the what's happening at that moment.
And does it have anything to do with the fact that was the Leafs' goal song for years?
I think it still is some teams' goal songs out there, in the NHL.
Okay.
Some of those American teams, they like to live like it's 1993.
I'd be curious to know if you are a listener and you are a fan of a team and you know that is their favorite song. Just let us know, because I'm curious. I don't think there's any way to Google that.
No, I mean there might be, but it's kind of interesting, because they might have a remixed version too or something like that. But yeah, that's definitely a fun one. And I think about that song brings me back to 99, thinking about those days. For the record, I am the oldest one here. I got Paul by a year, but we got Brandon by a few years, so. He's the baby of the group.
A couple.
He's the baby of the group. So if you're thinking of if you're trying to age us in particular, that song is definitely something I remember as being an adult, whereas Brandon was still a teenager when that song came out.
And what's funny is as we go through our lists, I almost guarantee you that if we do an average here, my songs are going to be the oldest.
Yeah. You've got the most traditional taste, I guess, in music.
Yeah,
okay, what's your number 2, Paul?
Yeah, I'll kind of actually parlay these into both here. So one of the things I liked about song 2 was the bass line and the guitar, obviously, because it really just kind of amps you into it. My number 2, the guitar really, really gets me into this song as well, and that's Faint by Linkin Park.
Ooh.
The guitar, obviously, right in the beginning with it. It just kind of it gets the tone started, and then you get the band jumping in, and you look at a guy like Chester Bennington when he's screaming in that song, you're feeling the intensity behind that. It just kind of makes you feel empowered.
I was a big Linkin Park fan back in those days, and it's funny because every time you mention somebody now, that's twice, I think back to a specific time of my life when I was listening to that music, and specifically Linkin Park. I have a lot of memories of when I worked at a movie theater and I would walk home after work. It'd be late at night and I'd be walking home listening to my music, and I was obsessed with Linkin Park back in those days.
That's what music does, man.
It does. It makes you feel... It's a good... Yeah, it literally... Brandon's got a tattoo on his arm. When life asks questions, music answers. And it's true, because it does... It literally makes you... It takes you back to a different time.
Totally does.
And it's cool to think about. And Linkin Park specifically gets you into this mood of sudden silence or calmness, and then just bang, it hits you like
chaos.
It just hits you with this energy, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I would have said it too. It's just,
and it's not even just that song. There's a few songs that they've got that do that to you, and
100%.
It's exciting. I love that kind of music.
Me too. Yeah, it's always been at least in my adult years is one that I've been able to more relate to. When I was younger, not so much, but certainly in my adult years.
For sure.
Leading into my number 1, still kind of going with the guitar and the heaviness and stuff like that. Funny enough, the song is also called Heavy by Collective Soul. Now, with this particular song, I never actually heard it until I heard it in NHL 2001.
Yeah, I remember that. That's hilarious. That's the gamer child in you, right?
100%.
Although I guess you weren't a child when that
I
song.
was 18 at that point.
Was that the year of Joe Sakic on the cover?
All I remember is the intro of the video game, where the animation and the puck is kind of flying towards the net, and playing Heavy by Collective Soul. I grew up a big Collective Soul fan, and I really liked that song, actually, when it came out. But it's one of their later songs when you think about, all their other music. But yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a hype song. When you think of how it relates to sports, it's definitely there.
100%.
I was not even close with the Joe Sakic.
Who's on the cover?
I just want to play a fun little game. San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
He was the captain.
Owen Nolan.
Owen Nolan, yeah.
What was that, 99? No.
01 we were talking about.
01.
2001, yeah. Yeah, that song was in the 2001 video game, and yeah, anytime I ever think of the NHL games now, that song is the first song that kind of plays in my mind, and it gets me hyped to want to play the game, to chill with my buddies and do that, and to watch the game. It for whatever reason, I don't know why, because I watched hockey all my life up until I was 18. But that song, to me, just screams hockey. It's intense, it's brawling, it's got a catchy tune, it's amps you, right? It drives you to want to watch. It's
kind of an anthem song, right? When you relate it to hockey. Just a side topic, one of the cool things about the EA NHL games of those days were the intros to those games. I used to love just sitting back and watching the intros, because they would use real video, and it was kind of exciting putting in a video game into your PlayStation and watching the kind of video that they had set up to get you hyped for the game too. And they kind of stopped doing that. I feel like they should really get back into that.
I find that that was kind of around the time that you started seeing even movie trailers sort of more focusing on the video aspect and the music that goes with it, instead of that guy going, well, Nicolas Cage is now saving the world.
Yeah. That's a good impression, by the way, but very true, yeah. Brando, let's talk about your top 3, my friend. Hype songs
All right, mine are a little more traditional, but I'm going to stay with the guitar riff theme.
Nice.
And my first one, and this was a song. It's interesting because I used to be the DJ for the local junior A hockey team, and now Joe is.
Yeah, that's right.
And this was one of the songs I played. I think I used this for 2 seasons. And it's a song by Poison called Nothing But a Good Time.
Don't mean nothing but a good time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very nice.
Starts off with that big guitar riff at the beginning and kind of does the same thing. Brings the band in one beat at a time until, they get through the first little intro, and then bam, everybody comes in together, and it's so cool. There's little pops and screams and woos and all stuff like that, and it's like, let's go.
It's great.
And if our buddy Mikey's listening, I bet you he's just smirking right now because we talk,
100% he
we
loves
talk about
Poison.
it quite a bit. Yeah.
That's awesome. The cool thing about hype songs for me is the build up, right?
100%.
So the way a song builds up, and I feel like every single song I chose has that same thing, but I feel like you're probably in the same boat. It's just that build up where it starts one way and then it turns out to be this whole other thing, but it's all energy.
And when we were discussing this topic before the show, and we were just trying to decide which songs we were going to do, I had so many to choose from, and it's exactly the reason that you talked about earlier with how it triggers memory, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking back to, in grade 12 when I used to go play hockey with the actual hockey boys. I got an invite from some guys that were actually hockey players in high school.
Yeah.
That they invited me up to play their Friday afternoon road game, and I'd go and play with them there, right? And they'd have songs playing like from Offspring a lot. Like Hit That.
Yeah.
And The Kids Aren't All Right,
Yeah.
and things like that, and Self-Esteem, and these kind of iconic songs from back then as well, right? And those memories get triggered, and I think, man, like I kind of want to pick those for the nostalgia purposes.
Totally.
But the second song I chose, the first one is specifically because of hockey.
Yeah.
It will be my number 1 song. But my number 2 is both a song I used to listen to before hockey, and anytime that I just want to get pumped in general.
Yeah.
And anytime I go for a car ride and I want to just roof open, windows down, crank the tunes, it's this one. And it's AC/DC Shoot to Thrill.
Oh yeah.
Again,
yeah.
that opening guitar riff, right? Just classic, the tempo, the upbeat, the drums coming in. I get goosebumps thinking about it, man.
The AC/DC has that reputation for the songs they make, like of being that kind of stuff you like. You're doing air drums, air guitar, and like just rocking out to, because that's the kind of music they produce.
And you can't understand any of their lyrics, but it doesn't matter. You're just, what?
The fact that he can do that with his voice,
Oh, man.
it's crazy. And
Yeah.
I mean, hosting karaoke, you hear people try to do AC/DC, and it's just like they try to bring themselves to that level, and then they go afterwards, they're like, "Oh, I did something to my throat." Yeah, of course you did. You tried to sing like him. But no, 100%, it's definitely, you can't beat AC/DC.
All right, my number 1's off the board, I think. This is actually...
I expect no other, by the way.
Yeah, this is actually a group that had Pharrell Williams in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
This group is NERD.
NERD. I remember
song,
them.
The song is called Rockstar Remix.
All right.
And it's fire, as the kids say. It is a absolute banger. If you guys don't know the song, you have to listen to it. Just, do whatever you got to do to hear the song. It's fantastic, and I just smirk ear to ear thinking about it because of the, like the good times, the playing hockey, and just fantastic song.
That's awesome. That's cool. I'm not familiar with it, I don't think. I feel like I know it. The name sounds familiar, but I can't think of the song off the top of my head. So I'm going to trust that you are correct and that it is a great song. Let me just talk a little bit about my 3 pump-ups. And I do relate them to hockey. Most of the songs I think of, I relate to hockey. Being the DJ for the local hockey team, I'm always thinking like, what can I put out there that A, they've never heard before, or B, they haven't heard in a long time that might get people going, right? Not just the players, but the fans too. And right now, I'll give you an example. I have what's called puck drop music. And these are the songs I play just before puck drop to get everybody kind of hyped, right? And right now, my first period puck drop song that I'm using for the team is Enter Sandman.
Oh, nice.
But I have I've done a little DJ work and mixed some stuff together. And what it is the sound of the ring announcer for the UFC, Bruce Buffer, going, "It's time." Dun, 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 and then it gets into the beginning of the song. For me, like, it gets me excited as I'm playing it. So I hope that the people feel the same way I do as I listen to it. But that song to me is like the perfect puck drop music.
Oh, 100%. That gruffness, when you're thinking of like Metallica and, the gruffness of James Hetfield, that he does build you right up, because he's empowering with how he's saying those lyrics. It's quite an exciting song.
And you can just hear how like Lars is like banging those drums, right? 100%. Like with such aggression, and it just makes you feel like pumped and like, yeah, let's go, like that's that kind of mentality. So that's my number one song. It definitely gets me fired up to get hockey going. So my second song is a song by Pantera. It's called Walk. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically like dun, 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 dun. For me, like just the dun, 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 gets me like hyped up, and the way it plays to the beat of that song, it's just so hard and like gets you super pumped up. So that's my number two. Are you guys familiar with that song at all?
I have heard it. Yes, it's one of the great things about metal music. Did not like heavy hard rock and metal when I was younger, but when you're our age and even I guess a little bit younger, that kind of music it's got build up all the time, all the way through it.
Yeah, I'll take James Taylor any day, man.
Fire and Rain, baby. So my third song is is another rock song, but it's by a brother-sister duo. It's not a metal song per se, but the brother and sister duo have a band called the White Stripes. And this song is called Seven Nation Army. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is it's one of those songs that you can get stuck in your head because of the beat itself, because of the bass line and the beat of the whole song. It just gets you into it. And it's dun, 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 dun. That's all you need to know. It's a wonderful song. And I feel like you guys know what I'm talking about.
I absolutely know the song.
I love that song. It's, Jack White and
Meg
White are going to be iconic for
forever. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome musicians, and it's a great song. So those are my three songs, fellas. Lots of great music to kind of listen to if you haven't heard them before. But these are your hype songs.
Give us your suggestions.
Yeah,
we'd love to hear what yours are.
Yeah, definitely. Comment down below. Let us know. What are your suggestions for super hype songs? Because there's probably lots of songs we didn't list. I focused more on the metal side of things. You kind of went a couple of different ways with your choices, Paul. Brando, you had some great suggestions as well. So, I mean, we could go anywhere with music.
Absolutely.
This is the cool thing about this show, is that we've got a lot of different avenues that we can take when it comes to music and movies, too. Well, fellas, that is going to do it for this week. How are we feeling about this episode?
There's a jam-packed episode again, which I like. Lots of content, lots of stuff going on, right? So
nothing wrong with that.
About. Yeah.
It was nice to touch upon music this week instead of doing movies. It shows the range of entertainment that we enjoy.
Next week we talk about musicals. No, I don't know what we're going to discuss yet, but make sure you come and join us again next week, because I'm sure we'll have some awesome stuff to talk about. We'll have a lot to talk about because the NHL season is here. Baseball is almost over. There's lots of playoff baseball happening. Basketball's coming up pretty quick here too, and of course the NFL and the CFL are almost, the CFL is almost in playoff time. NFL is right underway. Lots of stuff going on. Make sure you join us back here one more time for the Puckn Pod. Once again, my name is Joe.
My name is Brandon.
And I'm Paul.
We will see you next time.